This is the sacker for the flour, and this is the sacker for the cornmeal. This mill operates during the fair. It's powered by a turbine that is again powered by the Coahoa Creek. So this is where we do our cornmeal during the fair. Inside the Munson mill that we just saw are two millstones, and this is the Meadows Mill. It was manufactured in 1913 for the Meadows Manufacturing Company in Wilkesboro, North Carolina. And it belonged to the two families whose pictures are here. So it belonged first to the Ridleys and then to the Whisnets. And that's the Whisnets' house on the bottom. Those are the roller mills. Well, let me open them so you'll see what a roller is, as opposed to stone ground. These are metal rollers. This painting was done by Jean Kettles Murray. Her family owned Praters Mill, and she spent the summers here. And so she painted this painting really for her children to know what a farm was like. I'm trying to do a legend for the painting, and every time I check it, I've done something wrong. So eventually we'll have a correct legend. This is one of the original windows, and it needs to be restored. And so I'm scraping, priming, and painting it, and then reglazing the windows. And this is the sifter. It sifts the bran out of the flour. The Praters never had self-rising cornmeal. So when the church bought the mill in the 50s, they installed this equipment here. And so they did a mixer for self-rising cornmeal. This is where the bucket elevators that take the grain from one floor to the next, this is where they turn. Just look at all those angles.
Yeah.
Somebody had to do that, you know? And the main thing that people don't realize is that it's a flour mill, which means it's different from the local grist mills. It was built in 1855 as a commercial mill, so 3 miles from the railroad in Varnell, so that the flour could be shipped. They also had cornmeal, like all the other mills had. But this mill is made of hand-hewn pine timbers, mortised and pegged, which makes it a special treasure. But there was more than the mill. It was called an integrated mill complex. When it was built, it was a sawmill and a grain mill. Then they got a cotton gin, they had the blacksmith, they had a wool carder, they even had a camping shed where people could spend the night, because in the fall, when they brought their wheat to grind, the wagons would be lined up for a very long way, and so people would just spend the night waiting their turn. About 40 people lived here. So it took the ginners, the millers, the storekeepers, the blacksmiths, and they all had gardens on their property. And in the early part of the 20th century, the people got into the bedspread industry here. The blacksmith Mr. Kyle put him in the bedspread business. He made the scissors, he made some needles, and they would get the thread and the women would tuft their spreads, and it gave them cash money. It also gave women earning power they didn't have before. So these are some of the things that make Praters Mill a treasure. And the fact that it's still here is amazing.
My name's Angie Jennings. I've been a part of the Praters Mill Foundation for about 40 years. Being a part of the foundation is how I've grown up. And I've learned to do a little bit of everything. Because we are all volunteer, there's very, very little funds outside of what we raise. So we do a lot of the things ourselves. Our running motto is that we can do absolutely everything with positively nothing. I've done things such as, learn how to operate a bobcat so we can build driveways. I have learned how to plumb. I've done a lot of different electrical stuff, learned how to wire a barn with knob and nail, dug through bin after bin after bin of old hardware stores looking for the materials we needed to be able to wire our barns and keep everything vintage, the restoration effort being correct for the era that the building was wired or plumbed or whatever. A lot of these buildings didn't have electricity or plumbing in them originally, but they were added afterwards, and keeping that up to date is pretty tough sometimes. We spend a lot of time just dealing with aging issues with these buildings. The mill was built in 1855, so something as simple as we have a bad piece of siding means that we have to figure out how to make siding that matches this building, or trim molding. All of this stuff was hand hewn and hand done. So you can't just run to Home Depot or Lowe's or whatever hardware store and pick up something. We have to make that happen. We had heavy fire damage a number of years ago by an arsonist. And as the restoration and repair work began to recover from that fire, one of the biggest problems that we had was repairing the windows. We had several windows that were heavily damaged, and they were unrepairable and had to be replaced. To do that, we were able to get my grandfather to, his name was James Jennings, he's now deceased, but he came to our needs and was able to make these windows as exact replicas of what were here in his basement. These windows were originally handmade with hand-hammered panes a lot of times, in a lot of situations, but they were all handmade, and a lot of them were not, number one, they're not something that you can go to Home Depot or Lowe's and buy, and a lot of them are not even square. So he had to handcraft these windows for us to be able to replace them. One of my jobs is to help turn cow pastures into parking lots and then back into cow pastures in 10 days or less. And there's a lot of work that goes into that. Everything has to be roped off. We have to maintain driveways and culverts. We build bus stops that are temporary that make the loading and unloading of buses easier, more organized, and safe, and be able to get the traffic in and out of our parking lots and on and off of Georgia Highway 2 as rapidly as possible. And that takes a lot of work. It takes a lot of work from a lot of different people to make that happen. We took on a project a number of years ago of moving an old barn from down off Cleveland Highway out to Praters Mill. And once we got the barn here, and we knew we would want to use it for animal exhibits and other activities, and it needed to have wiring put back in it just so there would be some utility lights to be able to use for whatever purpose we needed, whether we were doing work in there or having an event, or just have lighting to get in and out. We spend a lot of time out here the week before the show and the weekends before the show, so we need all the amenities that we can have, make life just a little bit easier. What I'm doing this weekend is building a second hand washing station. We needed one on the other side of the street anyway. We had already built one for this side using galvanized metal pans and recycled lumber and tin. Just something portable that we can put out. Multiple people can use the hand washing station, and I'm doing the same thing for the other side of the street. So the Praters Mill Foundation is a group of volunteers, and all the things that happen, it's done by volunteer labor and people that we will recruit to help us if possible, just to get things done, because we have some pretty bizarre things that have to happen. Sometimes it's making molding to match molding that's on a building that needs to be repaired. Just general maintenance things, running a pressure washer, sweeping and cleaning buildings. It's amazing how much dust can accumulate in just a couple of months in a building that doesn't even have the doors open. It's a constant effort, just replacing light bulbs. And a lot of what we do is reparation and repair work from vandalism that occurs from people coming out and misusing the property and intentionally vandalizing it. So, we spend a lot of time cleaning up trash and putting siding back on buildings and fixing things that have been broken and spray painted and torn up by people that are just out here not doing what they're supposed to.
When Judy found this place and wanted to save it, she tried really hard to get somebody else to do it. And when that didn't happen, she decided to do it herself. So what does that take? Time and money. So to raise money, they started the Praters Mill Country Fair. It's now held every October on the second weekend. And that's how we make the money to take care of the building and the grounds that are open to the public. This is now property of the people of Whitfield County. However, the Praters Mill Foundation continues to maintain and operate the property. We started with taking care of the parking because all we have is hayfields. So we take the hayfields and turn them into a Disney World style parking so that everybody can get in quickly, get out quickly, and are not sitting around waiting in line, and we can put the maximum amount of people into the space. We created visual bus stops like you would find at any commercial event facility, but of course all of our stuff is portable. It comes apart into pieces, it goes into a small building, and can be used, interchangeably. So a few years ago they asked me to do some fair coordination, and then the fair director retired and they asked me if I would do that position. In December and January, we send out letters and emails to all of our returning exhibitors, so inviting them back. It's an invitation only show, meaning you can't show up and pay a fee and put whatever you want. Everything has to be handmade by the artist out of only natural materials. It's a primary requirement. Everyone has to meet that. So we've had a few people try to get around that, and we've had to put steps into place that kind of prove that, yes, this is handmade by me. And we have really gorgeous stuff from these artisans that you just don't see every day. And all of our exhibitors fall under that. The food, it's wonderful. It's the best Southern food this side of heaven. We accept applications year-round from September 25th to October 25th to September 25th. And we had the deadline to get in for the fair is June 25th. One of the purposes of the fair committee is to review all of these applications and make sure that they are handmade out of natural materials. From a list of photos, we require several of their products, several of them actually making the product, and pictures of their booth. Placing the exhibitors is really difficult. It takes a lot of time because those with seniority get to have the same spot back or change. And we take that into consideration, as well as putting in the new folks, the first timers, so that the wood items are all not next to each other, so that it'll, at least we'll have some buffer between each type of category that the exhibitor falls in.
I started when I was 7 years old. I grew up across the street from Judy Alderman, who was the founder of the Praters Mill Foundation. And every time she got in the car, I was in the car with her. She brought me out here and developed a love for Praters Mill. I love the history here. I love the stories that the mill can tell. I love the stories that the people tell when they come to visit. I've worked with Media Day, which is a day that we get together and mail out our publicity to the magazines, to TV stations, radio stations, and newspapers to publicize the Praters Mill Country Fair. I have come out several different times and cleaned the buildings, helped clean the buildings, get them presentable. Once they're shut up for 3 or 4 months, the spider webs and the dust and that kind of thing, they just need cleaning. And picking up trash where people have littered. I've helped get some exhibitors, find some exhibitors for this fair. I've had to go get the cornmeal and the corn that needs to be ground this upcoming weekend, so we will have some for sale. And I try to organize the volunteers so everybody has something to do, because we have so many different jobs, and trying to get all those positions filled and making sure everything is covered. We have to be careful how we say this, but we have historical graffiti here at Praters Mill. Years and years ago, the little kids got in here with the stove black, which was used to polish up the grist mill and the wood-burning stoves. They got to writing on the walls, and they wrote the people's names that they knew from when they were at that time. So you can go back and look on some of the walls and find people's names from back in the early 30s and before. And if you look closely, you can also see the pencil markings on the wall where they would do the tolls because it was a commercial mill, and so people would bring in, the miller would keep part of their grind for his pay, because they didn't have a lot of money, but they paid him in meal, so he would keep part of it. And you can see on the wall some of the figures on the walls where they figured up how much they were keeping and that kind of things. We are always in need of volunteers, but this is a very special place for families to come and people to come and visit and see and experience stuff they can't experience in downtown, in the big cities. You don't have this in the big cities. This is a special place. We have nature trails. We have wildlife viewing platforms. We have the cool creek that runs beside us that you can see the waterfall. Kids love to come here and fish. You know, it's a place to visit, it's a treasure to have. Not every place has this, and Whitfield County is lucky and to have this, and we are thankful for Whitfield County. They now own the property, and we're just stewards of that. There's something here for everyone. There's some little tiny thing here that everyone can relate to. We have the old barn, we have the country store, we have the stage. We have the grist mill, we have the Munson mill, we have the Meadows mill, we have the hiking trails. So there's something here for everyone to do, or just sit and relax